You mentioned in your written testimony the toxic algae outbreaks in Florida's coastal estuaries and elsewhere. And I was struck by that partly because I spent much of yesterday in my district in New Jersey on the banks of Lake Hopatcong, which is the largest lake in New Jersey, a place that is beloved by people in the district that I represent as a place of recreation, a place where folks spend their summers. It was mostly shut down last summer because of a harmful algae bloom outbreak. Other lakes in New Jersey experienced similar things, Bud Lake also in my district, and others. So I wanted to ask you, or any other members of the panel who might wish to comment, if you can go into any more detail on how we might be able to use the upcoming WRDA bill to tackle this challenge of harmful algae blooms that so many of us, I think, are dealing with back home.
Well, it's definitely a complicated problem, for sure. I think from the Corps' perspective across the country, it seems, from my perspective, if you really, this goes back to the value, that multiple value of natural infrastructure, that if you have robust wetland systems, you have healthy small streams feeding into those systems, and you have rivers that function the way, or at least attempt to mimic the way that they historically have functioned, that a lot, not everything, but a lot of the problem with algae blooms will actually wind up being assimilated through the wetland system itself and help ameliorate that disaster, and not also by holding more water on the landscape will keep runoff from coming down all at once and creating massive algae blooms at one time. So I think from the Corps' perspective is protecting the wetlands that we have, restoring those that have been degraded, and mainstreaming use of natural infrastructure as the approach to addressing our flood problems will go a long way to addressing some of those problems. It definitely won't solve it all, though.
Okay. And any other comments from anyone on the panel? Maybe just staying on this subject then for a moment, if you could maybe say a little bit about the role that a changing climate has played in creating these outbreaks. I mean, my understanding, at least talking to local folks who manage these lakes in New Jersey, is that the harmful bacteria have generally been killed over cold winters, and that's not happening anymore simply because the temperature has been warming. Is that a fair assessment, would you say?
That's my understanding. I'm not quite an expert in that, but on top of the that issue of temperature, which definitely plays into the situation, climate change with increasing floods and increasing runoff and faster storms, you're getting larger influxes into the system as well to begin with, and then you have to deal with what the water temperature will or will not address.
Thank you. Admiral Phillips, you and others discussed the larger challenge of extreme weather events, antiquated stormwater infrastructure leading to flooding. I think a lot of us have local problems. In my district, several communities along the Rahway River Basin, the Greenbrook Subbasin in New Jersey, have experienced extreme flooding related to weather events. And we've been working with the Corps in terms of building up resiliency. You may have seen that Chairman Pallone of the Energy and Commerce Committee, who represents a coastal district in New Jersey where a lot of my constituents spend their vacations, has introduced the Living Shorelines Act, a bill that supports projects that use natural materials and systems like dunes and oyster reefs to support the natural flood resilience of shoreline ecosystems. Can you elaborate a bit on how green infrastructure can be more cost-effective, number one, and also better suited for slowing down runoff and floodwaters compared to traditional gray infrastructure?
Certainly, Congressman, thank you for the opportunity to comment, and I will be brief. First of all, in Virginia, natural and nature-based features as our first line of defense is our top priority as we work to develop a coastal strategy and a plan for the state. So we value that as a way to buy us time, to buy property owners time, to buy businesses time, as we figure out what other kinds of infrastructure may be required in the future. These are also things that can be implemented, as you have pointed out, and as others have pointed out in this committee, for substantially reduced costs in many cases, and that can be given opportunities to evolve, to migrate over time so that the benefits remain even though water and weather challenges and climate influences continue to occur and continue to change the infrastructure. So we find them to be of particular import. In our case in Virginia, because we are so low, because there's so much there already, and the opportunity to build on and expand that is of significant value to us.
Thank you. Yield back.